Well, I've always felt a little bit of a tug to do some foreign missions, a lot because of my skill set as a physician and knowing that I could go and do some real good there.
Sure.
And in 2011, I went to Uganda with my wife. But as soon as I got back from that trip, Sally Darden asked me if I would lead a mission trip. About a year and a half later, we were going to Bolivia.
Oh, wow. After Bolivia, what was next?
I think everybody gets to that point where they begin to their fire gets a little bit quenched, and they kind of go through a desert season. And I was really beginning to actually drift away a little bit. I can't say that I was feeling His presence or His love in my life, and that was beginning to create a little bit of conflict internally. Well, one day after church, Beth Weichel walked up to me and said, "God told me that you need to go to Honduras." So I was like, okay, I'll think about that. And I began to pray about it. And a couple of months before I went on our trip, our church had an opportunity to send a Christmas present to one of the children in Honduras. And my wife thought it'd be a good idea for me to go ahead and maybe do that, and that'd give me a connection with one of the children when I got there. So we got a child, and her name was Kimberly. When I was a child, I had a sister, and her name was Kimberly. And she died when I was 6 years old. She was 9. It just became a very rocky situation with my family, and my parents got divorced. My dad kind of left, and that kind of set things in motion that I didn't realize until many years later that I had kind of brought into my relationship with God. You see, what happens when you have an absent father is you don't necessarily know if he loves you or not. And you try to earn his love. Yeah, what I call ceaseless striving. And I hadn't realized, but I had done that same thing to God. And so that's kind of the backdrop of where I was going into Emmanuel. So we get down there a couple months later, and Chris Thomas leads me around, and he brings me to the area where she is, and he said, "She's that one way over there in the corner." Knelt down beside her, introduced myself, and gave her a hug. And from the minute I met her, I was in love. But she would have nothing to do with me. I tried to show her the best that I loved her, and I gave her one of the presents, which was a sticker book. And I noticed there was a big sticker of a heart right there. And so I peeled it off, and I put it where my heart is. And I looked at her, and I got her attention, and I took it off, and I gave it to her. And she took that heart sticker from me. Instead of taking it, she just went and purposely put it over there, way off to the side. And all of a sudden, I just started bawling. I started crying. And it wasn't because she'd rejected me. It was because I just loved her that much that I didn't care. And it was in that moment that I heard that little voice in the back of my head that said, "Fred, that's how I love you." And I got it. I got it. That's how God is with us. We're orphans, but man, He just loves us. There are a lot of reasons why we don't go. Most of them is either because we're afraid we're going to fail, or we're just comfortable where we are, and we don't want to be made uncomfortable. Sometimes it's easier to stay when you could go.